G'day, doggies, fans, all things Bulldogs. It's episode 7 of the podcast. Hope everyone's feeling fantastic. Not sure if everyone knew, but we got to the milestone of 1,000 subscribers, so I was happy about that. And thank you to everyone who's joined the channel and supported it and, tuned in and gave your opinions. I've only got a person at the moment. It was a late decision to go. I was going to go last night, but decided just to get it done now. Got a big weekend coming up. Hello to everyone out there. If you're on, come say hello in the chat. You may get advertisements pop up from now. They usually, you can skip them after a few seconds, so just do that if you need to. But they help cover, you get a few cents or whatever, and it helps cover the cost of it, but it's not for that. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining and thanks for saying hello. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our game coming up next week against the Dragons. You'll see the team that's scrolling across the bottom. G'day, mister. It's me, the reigning champion of Serrato's Best 17. And welcome, Timmy Gray. Thanks again for joining, my friend. Good to see a couple of regulars saying hello pretty early. But I've got my predicted lineup for round 1. Many won't agree. There's a lot of fanfare, obviously, for the new guys coming through. And don't worry, we may see a Jack Todd lineup. He is a possibility. But I'll give you my team in a moment that I think will start. I think it'll be very similar to the one that ran out against the Broncos, minus Josh Curran. Did a little podcast on that recently, and and I've rang a couple of radio stations and had a chat there, and it's hard to disagree with what I've got to say, but they all go into their little shell that they've got the NRL's got a duty of care, and I'm just like, there's no duty of care to a player once they've been injured, when you know that accidental contact's going to happen in our game. Anyway, I'll talk about that again another time, and I'll keep talking about it until somebody does something. I'm very passionate about it. But our Bulldogs, a lot of people will disagree with this side, but it's it's the back line that we've got everyone sort of predicting. Tracy Wilson, Cherry, Crichton, Montoya, Burton and Sexton. There'll be no change to that unless there's an injury. The props, King and Hughes will start, in my opinion, with Marnie, Kickout, Preston and Mann. And the bench will be Haywood. I think Harry Hayes will replace Josh Curran. Moran will be there. Jamin Salmon will be there. And I think the 19th and 20th man to be for the first round will be Drew Hutchison. I reckon they'll try and get Cassius Tia and Joey O'Neill to play that first match in New South Wales Cup. I've just got a feeling. And with Hutchison offering that good, he'd be really fit and raring to go, and he's someone that could step in if there was an injury late. And then you've got Jack Todd. I reckon he's pretty fit as well, and I reckon they'll want to show him and the fans that he's really close to a start, and maybe put him on as the second replacement for the first game against the Dragons. Look, I probably agree that it would add more balance to the squad to bring in Jack Todd onto that bench spot and get him rotating straight away. I don't think they'll bring in Daniel Saluka Fafita, but they might. But that's just what I think they'll do. Harry Hayes made a heap of tackles in both trials. He made a massive tackle, I think 40 tackles in the trial against the Broncos, and he had some good. I thought he played well in both trials. His offloads were good in that first one, showed that he's a class above New South Wales Cup, and he did some really good defensive work against the Broncos in Redcliffe, which we've already talked a lot about. Now, I'll also give you what the Jacob Kiraz. There's been stuff coming out from the kennel about the type of injury. Look, I'll give you a little bit on that. I'll also give you a little bit on Karl Oloapu and the latest story released by talking about, the club wanting to protect him and then getting second, third and fourth opinions and that sort of stuff. So we might start there. Karl Oloapu, I can say that in my humble opinion, or maybe a bit more knowledge, is that the last story that came out, which said that the Bulldogs got a couple of opinions from some of the best respected doctors in the world that they utilise and stuff, that the risk was too high to play Karl. And that is definitely the case. That's definitely true. And it's also true, that he didn't want to give up his dream. He got some other opinions that have given him a slightly better, outlook or less of a risk. Him and his manager, it is true, negotiated with the RL Rugby League Players Association and with the Bulldogs for an amicable split, which was worked out. And I think once they got the details sorted, that's when it was finally announced. But this was done weeks ago. So that's the end of the saga with Karl. Big thing about Karl, everyone talks about we spent 500 grand. Well, those in the know, or someone was, one of the sponsors was telling people that they paid that money, so the club didn't pay it, apparently. And that was coming out, I think, round one, maybe 2023, that was being talked about, by a certain fella. Anyway, and there was a big push to get Karl into the squad. We had high hopes for him. It was no doubt that he would have been hoping by the end of his 4 years that big contracts would have been coming his way, obviously to support him and his family. A lot of these kids are under a lot of pressure because they are the shining light. They are the big hope for their family. Not sort of like the Hopowatis who just produce, star after star. John, he's produced how many kids that have played NRL and been really good. But most families, if you can get one kid who can do well, you're laughing. And Karl would have been looking to go back home at some point, unless the right offers came his way. But so it just makes sense that he goes back to Redcliffe, close to his family. That's where he did a lot of rehabilitation, amicable split, and I'm sure he respects and is very grateful to the Bulldogs in what they've done for him. I respect what the club has done. Karl Oloapu, wish him all the best with whatever comes his way. 100, well said, Tim. Some not so good too for Hopper. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, he had the second rower who's playing for the Broncos and for their feeder clubs. He got into some trouble, but he's still a good footballer. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. Just made a bad choice, which lots of people can do. But I agree. So welcome to everyone who's jumped on. That's Karl Oloapu. Now, the stuff around Jacob Kiraz, the club's been pretty transparent. Phil Gould said, yeah, Will was good, buddy. Will was very good. But Gus said about Jacob Kiraz that he had obviously was managing pain issues. People asked him on Twitter if it was the back. He said, no, it's not the back. It's a couple of other issues. Obviously, that's enough. They don't want to have to say too much more. But now people are saying he's got no cartilage in his hip and he's going to retire and all that sort of stuff. Well, look, there's been some people who have, I spoke to a bloke, really big Bulldogs fan, who said for a while that, the way that he runs, he's going to, leading with the hip and stuff like that, he's going to get damage at some point. But we don't know what diagnosed it. The back injury he had could have put pressure on other things, which caused the body to work in different ways. You never know. But, yeah, there is a couple of areas. The trainers are working hard on it. Obviously, we don't want to talk too much about where those areas are because, it just gives a leg up to the competition. But the club knows all about it, obviously. There's a chance he could be back after 1 week. There's also a chance it may take numerous weeks as well. So that's what I'll say about that. But, he does have pain, as Phil Gould said, and playing rugby league is going to be something he's going to have to, manage for a while. And as Gus said, there's many players out there with similar injuries, bone-on-bone injuries in their knees and whatever else that can't do things the same ways as other players and have to sort of have their own regime in order to get where they, to be prepared and fit each week. And, Terry Lamb was a good example of that. Apparently not, he just used to ride the bicycle, then run a lap or something to prove his fitness. But he just couldn't because he was too debilitated and in pain. If he was trained all week, he wouldn't be able to play. So we'll leave that for the club and for the individual to decide what they do with that. Obviously, everyone's got their opinions, but I don't think we should be trying to make the opinion for the club, if you know what I mean. They will make that themselves. That's physical sports for you. G'day, Tahi, bro. Welcome again, brother. And look, it's a perfect example, right? Right now that the NRL is in such a free fall about this class action that's coming. In 60 seconds, I'll wrap it up for you. The lawyers are going to easily dismiss the NRL's saying that it's got a duty of care to players with CTE injury, right? Because it's a combat sport where you assault people. So they just got to draw the line. They just got to say, all right, put the money away and get the money ready to pay out class action for the past. Nominate it as a combat sport. The pub test, every mum knows out there it's a combat sport. All this stuff about mothers choosing whether to put their kids in a rugby league, they know how tough it is, and they know that it doesn't matter whether they lower the tackles to the waist or if they put it slightly higher or slightly lower, they're going to get injured playing rugby league or any of these sports. You're going to get head injuries from heading the soccer ball in soccer, and who's to prove it anyway that you don't get drunk and knock your head, or you go under your house, which it's a bit lower and you've got big beams there and you got to turn the electricity back on, you hit your head there. I've done that about 30 times, getting tackled with a good one in the ribs, and then your head hits the ground, more head contact. There's nothing they can do to stop this, and there's really nothing they can do to, in my opinion, prove that it's all to do with rugby league. What if they played cricket and got hit by the ball, played hockey? It doesn't matter. The NRL's in free fall trying to protect itself from a class action when it just needs to come clean, because I'm telling you, the lawyers will make them come clean. They've known for a long time that that accidents happen in rugby league, and everyone tries to make sure that we protect the players and whatever else, but doing it after it happens, doing it after the game, right? Sin binning someone later on, 10 minutes later, because someone can't come on when they fell into his shoulder, and then suspending the guy. Sorry, but guys, listen to the points I'm making, because they're 100% factual. There's nothing non-factual here. I've actually spoken to lawyers about it. And the fact of the matter is, if everyone gets on there and starts holding the media to account to sort this issue out, and they stop beating around the bush so they can carry it on and discuss it for the next 12, 13 years, which they're going to do, we can get rid of this and get our game back and have the lawyers protect the game rather than trying to destroy the game, which is what's happening at the moment. And all these lawyers are sitting there licking their lips about how much money they're going to make defending the game and attacking the game. And what are we going to get? Oh, we're going to get a tap restart from the kickoff, or a 20-meter maximum kick distance, or tackling only around the waist. All this stuff. I'll still follow the game, whatever they do. But that's where we're headed, so they can manage perception. Got to keep talking about it. Ring up the radio stations, demand to talk about it. and put those points across. They're not protecting one kid out there by sending Josh Curran to a sin bin for standing there while a bloke fell into him. Draw the line at people swinging an arm or whatever. But for an innocuous contact, sorry. It's just part of the game. Sorry, you signed up for it. We'll do our best to look after you later on. But, yeah, to pretend like these things are going to stop because we sin bin people later on, bullshit. To pretend it's not going to happen in 5,000 other games of rugby league, sorry, not going to happen. Old fella Dave, who's going to be on the hook if this kid ends up in a wheelchair? His manager, the RLPA, the player himself. Sounds like he's not getting good advice and there is a track record there. Dave, Brent Tate had a huge risk of re-injury. I think Josh Morris had issues where he could have re-injured himself. Debilitating injuries, whether it's the neck. Jacob Kiraz, I'm pretty sure he had a fractured back. And I had a small fracture in my back when I was much younger. That's what they play with. Ever had a hip replacement? My mum did, and I know a heap of other mothers and dads that did. Debilitating. People get osteoporosis and break a bone or a hip. They're lucky to live another 2 years. Rugby league will cause those injuries with one wrong contact. That tackle that I could name 100 tackles. I'm not going to get into it, but look, there's a duty of care. The Bulldogs decided they weren't going to allow Karl to play rugby league with their jersey with the risk that they were presented by their doctors. But still, they support him in his endeavours. He can wear another jersey, and if he gets injured, I'm sure he's going to say he wouldn't change a thing. Just like all the blokes who are getting onset dementia will tell you they wouldn't have changed a thing. There's not many that would have. Maybe when you're having to deal with that, and it's really difficult for these families to deal with dementia as a whole, and for that to happen earlier, I can understand why it's such a big deal. I really can. All right, but they know. They know. They've always known. My mum knew back in the 70s. She wanted the kids to play soccer. They wanted to play league. Well, you're going to end up punch drunk. You probably get your face broke. You're going to break your nose, that's for sure. I didn't break mine, but my brother broke his. He probably ran harder than me too. 2 kids played. 1 kid got his nose broken. All right? And I didn't play him that much. I played a lot of soccer. I loved all sport. There's a risk every time you run out there. But the Dogs decided the risk was too high for us to risk that kid. And we wanted to put him first. And it turns out the Rugby League Players Association, the manager, the kid, they all know they've got what their goalposts are, and they're going to work within those lines, I'm sure of it. And if something bad happens, it's, we'll leave it with them. That's up to them. Kiraz would be a massive loss. Fingers crossed he's okay. Yeah, me too, mate. All these, look, we love all these players in our side, especially Jacob Kiraz. And I hope he is okay. But if playing rugby league's devastating for him and he needs to make a choice and not play, well, I wish him all the best. But I can't. Most rugby league players are as competitive as hell, and they put up with the pain if they could. So that's what it'll come down to, if he can put up with it. And there's players, like the amount of pain they play, most of them go through just in one game anyway. There's no more standing out in the wing to get a rest and get a break. you're just getting worked over 24/7 out there, and you're in pain. That's why we love it. That's why we watch these guys. They're just phenomenal. What they do, even the best team, the worst team, they're all magnificent in my opinion. But if they wear different jerseys, I want them to get belted. So we're taught to tackle from the age of 5. Some for parents know what we're joining. Exactly. Look, if they lower the tackle height, people will knock them. There'll be more. There'll be less like head knocks, but there'll still be heaps of head knocks and people knocking themselves out trying to tackle people. They'll work on the technique, and this is what they keep saying about, if they work on the technique, it won't happen. It'll still happen because under fatigue, blokes know that you don't put your head in certain positions, but they do it anyway because they're tired. And that's what happens. They can't. That's what I mean. The media keep fucking saying all this shit to, justify everything because they want to debate it for as long as possible. They want to have everyone, divided on it. And some of the media don't even know it, but their bosses know that, which is why the bosses say, this is what I want you to talk about. Or they come prepared and they're, we're going to talk about this, But even when, I ring up the radio station, I'm talking to bloody Scott Sattler and Matt Rogers. They say really good points, can't disagree with any of it. And then Matt Rogers, then they cut me off so I can't talk anymore. And Matt Rogers says, yeah, but the rugby league's got a duty of care, and surely although we hope all the trainers and medical staff and everyone in all the bush footy and kid footy, train their kids the right way. And that I'm like, well, they're all volunteers, mate. None of them are getting paid. That's what I mean. Like, if you really lay it out there for what it is, shut it down. Or accept it's a combat sport. It's combat sport. I'm going to target this. They're literally out there targeting each other. And right now, it's all in favour of the attacker. If you're the defender, you're accountable to everything. And you're not allowed to protect yourself from this bloke running with his, Tino running with his bloody elbows up at Marnie's head. Tino's protecting himself. Why can't the defenders protect themselves? It's a combat sport. They're throwing a punch, you're throwing a one back. You're blocking it. It's combat. It's just got rules of how you can combat. It's time that everyone just admitted to it and owned it. And then draw a line in the sand, and this is what you're signing up for. Just like, what are they doing? CTE cases on people that do UFC and boxing? No. Well, why can't they do it for rugby league? Answer me that, someone. Can someone answer me that? And then I'll shut up about it. Depending on your family sport, 100%, brother. Kiraz looked good in spirits last week's game. Yeah, well, I saw he was walking around fine at Redcliffe. He looked great. No dramas whatsoever. So, well, there you go, Tahi. There you go, mate. The UFC fighters are wrestling coaches. And the wrestle is to put pain on people to, grip, strangle, choke, make people drop footballs, put people in pain, pressure points, all that sort of stuff. Knees in the back. Like, the amount of players have been copping knees into their rib cages, and then the pressure of it, just the amount of dirty, grubby tactics that happen in the game of rugby league, which is just part of the game. It's all assault. And I love it. That's why I go to pay $59 fucking dollars to watch a fight that goes for 2 minutes. If I'm lucky sometimes. Because I like watching the contact. I'm glad I'm not in the ring, and I worship these guys for having the courage to do it. And it's the same with our gladiator sport, right? It's the same thing. We need to speak up about this shit. It's big because they're ruining the game. They're stuffing up games, and sports bet love it. Dogs ahead 16-6 after 10, 15 minutes. Jerry Marshall King gets sent off. Oh, he's not even with the Bulldogs anymore. But I was just going back to an old game where we were doing well. Get a sin bin. Live sports betting money comes flowing in for the team running behind. Next minute, they're in front. Now, they would have lost their money with the Bulldogs a few times last year because we had some sin bins and we actually held teams off and beat them, you know. It's like we played better when we were down to 12 men. That was the sort of season we were having, you know, and that's what we want to see this year from our dogs. But sports bet, anything which makes the game turn on its head, 6 agains, sin bins, penalties. So you get an innocuous action, an accident happens, and it just changes the whole fabric of the game. Changes the momentum, changes everything. Brings money from the gambling sector in straight up. If people don't think that the gambling sector doesn't have an influence on our rules and the way the game's played, it's probably better they don't, because then you can just enjoy it more. But in saying that, we know the rules, we know the game, and it does make it appealing in a way as well. With the salary cap and with, you know, clubs choosing best practice more and more, it's becoming more cutthroat, more even, more closer for the majority of sides. When you look at them, weigh them all up, similar amounts of experience in their sides, all that sort of stuff. Then you add these little tweaks to the rule changes each year. It brings in, you know, a little bit of mystery. Oh, what's going to happen here? Oh, this is going to change things. Used to just be that the ref would give one team all the penalties till they were so far in front, and then even it up when the other team, you know, were tired and busted, and then until they get a couple of tries, and then they'd go back to reffing it sort of equal again. Seen so many games like that. Many people know it, I'd say, whether you're in a Group 2, watching a Group 2 game, a ref doing that, or whether you're in, you know, watching Group 9 or at a junior rep game, or even the NRL. The old square up with the ref to make, and the count comes looking, oh, it's 9, penalties were 9-7, the 6 agains were 5-4. Possession was 50-50. Ref had no influence on the game whatsoever. Okay. Gamble responsibly. Perfect. The speed of the modern game is crazy. It's harder and faster than gridiron. That's why we're trying to get into the American markets. We want to get in the American markets because we want to give them something extra to bet on. But the athletes over there, there's always been a thought that there's so many of them that don't make it there, that if you tapped into that player market, like, it's funny that Aussie players get to make it over there, but they're all looking for a certain type of, like, they're so defined, the roles over there. You know, where if they see that prototype anywhere in the world, then they know that they can, you know, channel that and work on it. But there's so many players which are just that little bit off, but might be actually really good at a role in rugby league. You know what I mean? I think they're smart to tap into it. Are they smart to have Donald Trump involved in it? If you're thinking about the women's game, no. But, you know, Each to their own. All right, guys, we've been going for half an hour. What I want to do is give you, we'll probably only go for about an hour tonight at the max. But what I really want to do is give you the pecking order that I see for each role within the side. So you got your fullbacks, your wingers, your centers, your halves, which I just combine, your hookers, your props and middles, your locks and small locks, your edge back rowers, and then the bench roles, which is you've got your utility role, which can play hooker or come on and play a small lock. You've got your prop role, which we generally, since Serrato's been there, only been carrying one of those. Like that's what he sort of settled on. He hasn't wanted to have that extra big boy on the bench, like a lot of teams have, and some teams are starting to copy that. You know, I noticed Wayne Bennett did it with the Dolphins, started doing that with the Dolphins, and some teams are doing that now, and that might be the new way forward. But some players, teams like the Broncos, for example, have got some of the biggest humans, but they can play really long minutes. And obviously, if Canterbury had that, they would go to that as well. So it comes down to how many minutes they can play. So we're basically carrying one prop, and that prop could be, you know, at the moment it's Josh Curran. He's the prop on the bench who plays long minutes in that rotation. Now, so I'll show you my order for that. Then they've got the hybrid, and this sort of started with Jaden Ockenbaugh, where you've got like a winger or someone who played centre through New South Wales Cup and juniors as well, and they turned him into a back rower and then carried him like a hybrid on the bench. I'll tell you who's got that role now, I believe. And then you've got your smaller sort of prop, and this can sort of be anyone, but Kurt Morin's got that role now, if that makes sense. So I'll go through it. Trump did well with women voters. Doesn't matter if he did well with women voters. It's called tribalism. It's like having a football team you follow, and when you say stuff that sort of people in their mind sort of think a little bit and can relate to. But Trump's not doing well with most women I know can't stand Trump, or they just think it's hilarious, the whole circus. So, but anyway, I don't want to get too political. They they're beginning to realize the game is non-stop. It's a spectacular experience for them. Well, that's it. The NFL, it's just like a 3-hour game. They get 11 minutes of play or something like that. Ridiculous. But when you love the game, you know, you just love it. You know, and they like to talk and digress. You know, they get to talk about each play and everything coming up, the next thing coming up. Like the Australian commentators, you hear Vossi in that talking about what they'd like to see and things coming up, but it's all happening the whole time. Like, and when it's 2-stop start, they get the shits, as does the fans. You know, our game just flows, bro. And we're not sure if Americans like that, because, you know, they like their baseball where they have 8 innings. Everything, and each little thing takes so much time, you know, so slow. Basketball, though, non-stop, except for the free throws, I guess, but pretty much a non-stop till they start doing their timeouts and whatever. You can get a real roll on and lots of action, you know. G'day, Lucas. Welcome, brother. Thank you for... NBA goes way too long, too many timeouts. Yeah, but I love basketball as well. My knees don't. Need to lose some weight. It's hard to do walking when your bloody knees are stuffed. Which happened when I got tackled as a young fella. Look, so I'm going to show these roles. Many won't agree, but we'll start with our backs. So our fullbacks are Tracy. He's obviously in front. Then Taff. Then I think it's Blake Wilson, Stephen Crichton, Jacob Kiraz, and then young Tay Cochrane. Right? In that order. Tay Cochrane will progress up that order once he's able to play NRL. But that's how it is at the moment. For our wingers, it's Jacob Kiraz is our number one winger. Marcelo Montoya is probably just in front of Blake Wilson at the moment, although many would disagree with that. And Ari Tawala next. Then Jonathan Sewer, Jethro Renikama. Our centres, Crichton and Cherry, are the first men up there in the side. And then after that, Kiraz would probably move to centre. Tawala would come in. And then they can look at players like Luke Smith, Michael Gabriel. Jonathan Sewers played a bit there and did a bit in the trials. And even Drew Hutchison can come into centre, as can Satili Tupanua. Our halves pecking order is Matt Burton's our number one half. Doesn't matter if he's not the 7, he's our number one half. Toby Sexton, then Joey O'Neill and Drew Hutchison, Cassius Tia, then Mitchell Woods and Bailey Haywood. And obviously, if they're injured, the player behind them comes in ahead. And that's how I see it. Now, it's not bloody rocket science. This is just, but when you're sitting there thinking about who's next man in, this is how I've sort of worked it out. So they'll bring a next man up if one player's out of a position, but sometimes they'll move a player as well and then have another player slot, the next man up slot into their position, if that makes sense. So our props, this will be a big debate here. Max King, Sam Hughes are at the top 2 and Josh Curran with the rotation. Then I've got Saluka Fafita, Tom Amone, Ryan Sutton, Curtis Moran, Jack Todd, Zion Mayu, Lipoi Hopoi, Jack Underhill, and Alex Army Jones. Now, just because, so if Max King comes out of the side, you might see Josh go into the front row from the bench, right? So then they've got to make a play. Then it's the next man up for Josh Curran's role on the bench. And it's not necessarily going to be the prop or the starting prop. But they might decide, we'll keep Josh Curran on the bench and bring Daniel Saluka Fafita straight in. Or Jack Todd or whoever it is. But I think that's round about the order. Obviously, Ryan Sutton is injured. And I'm not sure if they would start with Curtis Moran at prop in NRL, but he started at prop in New South Wales Cup before. So that's the props. The next is the locks. So they'll come up in a sec. Kurt Mann's our number 1. Then Josh Curran has been our number 2 lock. Then Satili Tupanura, I believe. And those two could be switched around. Curtis Moran, Jamin Salmon. And Salmon may even be higher up that list, to be honest. Jack Todd will come in there. Bailey Haywood obviously plays there in a small-time role off the bench. And Harry Hayes is another one that can play in that smaller role. Kickow and Preston and Tupanura are our 3 edge players. Josh Curran would move and go to an edge if either of those players out, or Jamin Salmon could go in. So could Harry Hayes, and then the next people after that would be the young Logan Spinks, the fella from the Greater Northern Tigers. So there you go. That's how it works, in my opinion. That's the order. But just because they're in that order for each role, some players will move to another role as the next man up, rather than bring the next man up for that role from outside of the team as well. So just depends what's going to work best for the side. and who they need to rest and how they want the rotations to go. They know that if they go for 27 rounds and Max King plays 50 minutes for 20, and he doesn't get injured, there's a time there where they sort of need to give him a bit of a rest and give him less minutes and give someone else some more. And I think they really did that last year. I really do. Hookers, Reed Marnie, Jake Turpin is number 2 when he's ready. Then Bailey Hayward, Kurt Mann can come in there. Then young Ruben Moyle and Taniela Otakulo I felt played very, very well in that game against the West Tigers. Now, here's the bench utility stuff. So we've got Bailey Hayward as the number 1, then Jamin Salmon. That could be reversed. Jake Turpin will play that role. Drew Hutchison could play that role, as could Curtis Morin. Now, the middle first rotation, Josh Curran's currently there at the moment. I think Satili Tupanua would replace Curran there if he was available, which is why I believe Harry Hayes will come into that role, or Jack Todd. Then Daniel Saluka Fafita, Tom Amone, Ryan Sutton, Lipboy Hotboy, or Curtis Morin. And we've also got Zion Mayu. Then we've got the bench hybrid. I think Satili Tupanua is the bench hybrid to start the season once he's fit. A player that can play second row, a player that can play in the centres, can play lock. I think. G'day, Mark. Good to see you, mate. Offense and defense. Wilson! But yes, at the moment, the first rotation, I think, is Curran. I think Tupanua would move into Curran's role if Curran starts or is not playing, which is why I think Harry Hayes will join it. And then I've already talked a bit about that. Your hybrid, I think that's Satili Tupanua. Jamin Salmon plays all those positions as well. Second row, lock and centre. Harry Hayes can play second row, lock and centre. Drew Hutchison can play second row, lock and centre. And then you got the small bench middle, which I think small is the wrong word. I think it's just small at the moment. I think that role could go to any of those 5 players there. Curtis Morin's in there at the moment. I think Jack Todd would come in there, Jamin Salmon even, Harry Hayes, Lipboy Hotboy, in that order. But if a player like Saluka Fafita or Tom Amone are at a fitness level where they can play NRL for at least 30 minutes, right, if needed, and defend back-to-back sets for long periods of time, that's what's going to elevate them to the team, guys. They're not going to carry a player that can play 12 minutes under duress and then has to go off because they're too tired. They don't want to do that anymore. I'm telling you that now. They made that clear last year. There were big players. They could have played Liam Knight any time last year. His form in New South Wales Cup, he had some really good games, but they didn't give him a go at all. You know why? Because under NRL, they didn't want to carry that big man there. They brought in players that were hitting the fitness KPIs and hitting the endurance and resilience KPIs off the field and in what they were doing in Cup. They brought them into NRL and they did the job. Harry Hayes played quite a few minutes under duress, defending and defending and defending. That's why he was in the side. That's why Hayward was there. Their defense first. We want to see players get skittled. I love watching Franklin Pele off the back fence. I can't wait to see Daniel Saluka off the back fence and Zion Mayu. But they have to be able to defend and be resilient for minutes at a time. And if they can't, it's too risky, I think, to carry them on the bench. There may be some games where they go, look, we're going to put them on the bench, try and see how many more minutes we can give them, or sort of work them into it out of necessity due to injuries, or we're in a position where we can actually afford to do that. They've been increasing their minutes in New South Wales Cup, playing 50, 60, sometimes more. I think we'll see Saluka Fafita play 50, 60 minutes in New South Wales Cup, so that when he comes to NRL, he can go 20 minutes at the start, get back in the line and defend, cover and come across in cover when the little fellas come back inside and test us early. Be in and around the ball, plug up holes, stop the ball getting through from grubbers, all that sort of stuff. It's all those effort areas. These big fellas, they can't do it if they're not prepared for it. If they're not doing it on the weekend, week in, week out. It's why they had the trial. They didn't, they brought their main side to Brisbane. They want the other guys there, so that if any injuries happen to Josh Curran, they can bring in one of those guys potentially. I think Hayes will get the job, and everyone will be going, look how small our bench is. And I've got a feeling they might even name like a Saluka Fafita in the 17 for round one and then not play him. If they do play him, fucking great. Because that, to me, I know that he's fit. And I'd expect that he's going to be able to play 15, 20 minutes without an issue. He might only do that once in the game. But if he does it at high energy, tackles his ass off, runs his ass off, does his job, holds up that middle, gets us into a good position, I'll be happy as Larry. But I believe they'll come into the side only when the coaches are all on the same page that these guys aren't going to let them down defensively. And that's the way I see it. But in saying all that, if round one, round two, that's when lapses happen. That's when people aren't at their fittest. They get a bit tired. Might see a Burton miss one in the line. Or the winger fall off a tackle. Or the centre, get caught in no man's land. It's going to happen. There's a lot of Dragons there with some points to prove. They've got a big chip on their shoulder. They're a lot fitter from last year, right? You got Lachlan Ilias, who was kicked out of South, pretty much. Flanagan, no one of the Bulldogs really wanted Flanagan. Many like myself went to bat for him. Happy with his defence. Like that he put his head down in there and had a crack and had a go. He's going to run the ball and ask questions a couple of times. He will. And he'll try and get away a quick play the ball. And off that next play, they'll be dangerous, especially near the line with a big man isolated on one of our little men. That's how they'll do it. That's how we've always done it with players like Kyle Flanagan in our team. No one cares if they run. And when they do run, the players inevitably bring them down. But if they disrespect a player like Flanagan for 1 second, you can get a quick play of the ball away, and off the next play, try time. Big a Moses Surley on the edge or a Jonathan Sewer, running at a Bronson Cherry. Just sort of backpedaling a little bit. Then Montoya rushes in because we're under duress, and they just put it through their hands and going in the corner. Like, this shit'll happen. The Dogs, I hope. I like the fact Billy Slater said that it's going to be hard for us to repeat what we did last year. I like that. And if it's not hard, it's not worth it. It has to be hard. And I hope those boys go out there and annihilate the Dragons. Just defensively. Don't care if we win by 10, win by 2, win by 30. I just want them to be all over them to the point where the Dragons don't look like they can score points and have to resort to, kicks and a bit of luck and stuff like that. That's when I feel good about the Bulldogs. That trial, although there wasn't that many players in it, first graders, I always felt we're better than the Tigers that game. Even when we fell behind there and we'll leak in territory through the middle and falling off a few tackles and And funnily enough, that second half, it was Todd. It was Saluka Fafita. They weren't plugging up those holes. They weren't getting back. They're feeling the pinch, and so they should. It was the first trial, right? The big day. But the Tigers are rolling, marching upfield for that period, and they did get some fifth tackle repeat sets. They did get a bit of a hand, I must say. But they got the lead off the back of it. Jack Underhill comes in and just plays that system. Line speed, desperation, repeat efforts in defence, throwing himself at players, meeting them at the advantage line. We saw that all last year in our NRL squad. We're seeing that from him. I think Jack Underhill, while I've got him at the back of these pecking orders, I think by the 6th or 7th round, or maybe even sooner, he will have already put himself higher up that pecking order, if not already. Okay, there's always room. There's expectations and rumours. I'd say the expectations are, for a lot of fans, is that he could come in pretty soon. But what I will say is, don't forget the players that did the job last year. The players like Jamin Salmon. I know he doesn't look like the greatest runner of the football. He's not that fast. He's not that big. But the amount of try-saving tackles he made, we wouldn't have made the finals without a player like him. And then to have this sort of diversion that a player like him is just going to, run to the line and pass the ball out the back. And he decides to run the footy and scores points in a real important game, in a tight part of the game against the Dragons. We don't win that game without Jamin Salmon. Whether you like him or not. But don't just move past the players that are already there and done the job. They're the incumbents. It's up to the other players to perform better than them in everything they do. And I'm sorry, but you don't see what's happening at training. You don't know who's got all the information, right? If this is who the coach is putting in, that's who the coach is putting in. They deserve it. Simple as that. Doesn't matter what we think. But I do agree. The player like Jack Todd, Jack Underhill, they're coming. Gus even said it. And it's funny, the amount of after that I got sent about 5 emails from different people telling me that they're next up. They're coming in next, probably in round 1. And they're ahead of everyone else. It's coming from everywhere. As soon as Gus puts that tweet out, all of a sudden everyone knows or thinks they know. Gus won't be lying if they debut in 2026. He's still not lying. They're still coming. I think both will debut before. I think Jack Todd will debut before round 10 through either injuries or through good form. And Jack Underhill, I don't think he'll be too far past the middle of the year. And hopefully with some internationals or some origin or something like that, we're able to bring in a player like that on the bench and see what he can do. Because, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving what I'm seeing from him. Defense is the hardest part of the game. Excellent, Mick. Good attitude. Excellent. The audience needs this type of education. Well, thanks, mate. I do feel like I'm preaching half the time. But that's why look, guys, this channel exists because I got sick of going on Facebook and on Instagram and wherever else and the kennel.net and just listening to the smut, the fair weather. Look, and I will say this. A lot of these people that I've had run-ins with, other fans, whether it be here or on Facebook or whatever else, they love, most of them, I say fair weather, but the vast majority love Canterbury as much as I do in their own way, right? That's different to me. And it's not for me to say these people are wrong. But what I talk about is respect and reality. The players owe you nothing, right? They owe you nothing. But you can request that they give it their all every week, for the club. That's what the club wants. And the players that put club first, team second, individual third, are going to be with the club for longer than people and players that don't, right? But respect them. If they wear the jersey and they're picked in the side, to sit there on Facebook and say, oh, Sam Hughes is shit, as one bloke says. And then the next bloke says the same thing, but in a more respectful way. I think the hype around Sam Hughes is overrated. I haven't actually seen I haven't seen the action match the talk, is what somebody said. And then I educated that person on how many minutes he played, many meters per minute, how many tackles per minute he made on the field, how that slowly increased, how he played every game last year. His missed tackle rate compared to his ineffective tackle rate, the amount of penalties he gives away due to being too slow in the ruck, offloads, all that sort of stuff. Where is he playing? What time is he playing? What part of the game? These are all relevant. He's running supports as well, this guy, And the great thing to see, and sort of moving a bit laterally from that, is just seeing these young fellas when they get their opportunity, whether it be in a trial or last year, the amount of support runs that they made, backing players up through the middle. And what that did is it lifted some of the other players that were already sort of like a player like Burton, who's done 3 bombs already, done 3 long kicks. We've been struggling to make it out of our own end. Player like Bailey Hayward comes on, and he runs beside the front row 3 times in a set when Burton sort of struggled to get in the game. Matt Burton then sees that happening. Then next minute he's running off someone, and then he gets the ball. And he hadn't sort of done that in the game. These youngsters, by following the dog system of what the Bulldogs want from their club and from everyone in their club moving in the same direction, inspires some of the leaders to be better. And I think that's why we had a great year. While there was more leaders and that come into the club and set a standard, and especially with the things they said, and obviously their actions at training and everything else, and some of them with their actions on the field, there are moments where it is just talk. And under sufferance, the mind goes elsewhere. You see it in some of our highest paid players, and it's across the NRL, where they throw that pass they knew they shouldn't have thrown, but they just did it anyway. They knew that they should never have done that at that point. Sometimes it's bringing on a young fella like Curtis Morin, who's, 89 kilos or something, or 90 kilos, launching himself into the defence and getting up quick and playing the ball after he's just been monstered. That's inspiring to these players to go further. And, it's not just the Bulldogs, it's in all clubs. But I saw it in our team last year. Any of those players in the back line, they were just watching Jacob Kiraz just putting his hand up saying, give me the fucking ball. And, leading into the line, making post contact more than any other player in the team. And he's not huge. He's a winger. He's not a little nugget of power. He's a lanky, He was the best winger in the comp last year. His stats were better than Zach Lomax. If he could have kicked goals, you're looking at a probably Origin representative. Had a couple of games where he dropped some footy too and cost us in that Raiders game. 2 big drops. Got targeted. That young fella, that 5'8" from the Raiders, he knew exactly where to hit Kiraz. Ricky would have been into him all fucking week. When Jacob Kiraz is here, you fucking hit him there under the ball. Ball comes out. They were all hanging around waiting for it. It was like they practiced it. They knew it was going to happen. They expected it to happen. They had repetitions on that. They go and score in fucking Magic Round. Jacob Kiraz got his pants pulled down twice in that game. We still nearly won it. It still looked better than them most of that game, even though it was one of our poor. It was just a piss poor effort overall, but we still nearly won. And we finally beat them at Belmore, where we look way better than them, but only just beat them. And that just shows that Raiders side are fucking gritty, and they play for their coach. They play for their existence. Hardly anyone wants to go down there. They're hard to beat. And that's what Phil Gould, what he said about Penrith Panthers when he first went to them. I want everyone to know that when they come to fucking Penrith, that they've played us and they didn't enjoy it. Win or lose, I want them to fucking know that they just come up the mountains and play the Penrith. That's all that mattered. And that was old school Penrith. The Chocolate Soldiers, when they could hardly win a game, but you didn't look forward to the match because you were going to get belted. And that's how he's looked at the Bulldogs now. We've got to be hard to beat every fucking game. Every single game. We've got to be hard to beat. And it all happens with defense. So, yeah, we want to feel the nostalgia. You know, going back to, for a lot of people, it's the last premiership victory in 2004. We want to have the nostalgia of Mason and Asatasi and Ryan and Price. You know, Rennie Matua, Tony Grimaldi, little Adam, no name Adam Perry, with big name Corey Hughes, born and bred. Willie Tonga on the edge, Anasta and Sherwin, General Luke Patton, and then has them kicking the fucking goals from everywhere. You want that nostalgia. You look at players. You know, I look at Jack Underhill and I'm like, he just reminds me of every important forward we've ever had. Paul Dunn, fucking James Graham, Aidan Tolman. Tolman just worked his ass off. He deserved a premiership with the Bulldogs. He didn't get one. Jack Todd, he's like our own Cameron Murray. I said that a couple of times. But if they're not going to fucking tackle and be resilient and get through their minutes, the way the game is in 2025, they're not going to get in the side or get too many opportunities. So that is where it's at. And they want to see that. You know, all these juniors are playing these systems. Club first, team second, individual third. They're getting chopped and changed. The positions get chopped and changed. They've got players that have played centre their whole life, being put in the second row or getting tried as a utility. And they've got players who are fullbacks, but they're putting them in at six and whatever else, you know. Front rowers playing on the edge. And it's hard for them. It's hard for their families. It's hard for them because the club's saying we think this guy could do this here, but we actually have this other player that we want to try them out in that position because we think they'll be good there. And they have to just move the pieces around all the time because they don't really care about winning Harold Matts and winning Jersey Flegg and SG Ball. Look, it's great to say we won those competitions. It's great for the fans. It's good for the ego. It's good for the youngsters coming through. But the reason they do it is because they know they're hoping that one or two players from each of those teams ends up in our full-time squad and becomes an NRL player who can go on and play 100 games with the Bulldogs. And it's just an audition for everyone, you know? This is what they're building. Getting back to we're becoming a club where there's so much talent in those juniors that they're hard to beat and they win a lot of matches. But winning the matches is secondary to each of those individuals lining up and potentially becoming that missing piece of our top squad that we need in the future. And I look a little bit forward, and I hear the commentators talking about salary caps, and I've heard Gus talking about it. All I can say is that if you've got really good junior talent and you're able to keep, and you've got assembled a really good squad from your juniors, like the Panthers, for example, imagine if they got to keep all those players and none of them, because they got some dispensation and they were able to keep all those players in their squad. So they're able to keep Kickow, they're able to keep Crichton, they're able to keep Burton, they're able to keep Luai, Appy, Coruscant. Tell me, if they were able to keep all those players, where would Mitch Kenny be? Where would, Liam Martin be? Would Matt Burton be even playing first grade? Would he be in the centres? Or would he be a 5'8"? Probably be still in the centres. Would he have even got a job in the centres if they were able to keep players? And what about all these other young kids that they've put up? Taruva, the two brothers that are about to make, one of them is about to make their debut. Where would they all be? What, sitting there, earn a minimum contract or on train and trial contracts? Like, or are they just going to have two full-time squads that they pay all this money to and let them play half a season each? What are they going to do? Like, they talk about this shit and I go, and I'm rambling on now, but because I'm thinking this is the stuff that Bulldogs fans, and we're going to be crying because this player had to leave because we became successful. Touch wood. But if we can keep that player, that's closing the door on another player, isn't it? You've got to have that movement. You've got to have players move on. Well, you can't. What's the point of having a development system where you replace players and bring players through? They won't get any opportunity. And all those youngsters would end up at other clubs anyway. I think there's no perfect system, but I think the one we've got, maybe that can keep increasing the cap, but you've got to be able to have your talent come through. And if they're going to wait a bit longer as well at your club, like the McLean brothers and all these players, Preston Rickies and everyone who's been there in that system for years, if they're going to hang on and get their opportunity, players have to leave. Players have to leave. Simple as that. Sorry, guys, I'll get through all these chats. Defense is all about effort and attitude. 100%, my friend. I'll support whoever wears the Doggies jersey. Proud to be a Bulldog. I hope the club can keep Moran. He's a real goer. Yeah, well, look, when they start getting little, the club puts them in front of the cameras at a school, it's all an audition. So he's going to go out there and knowing that he's under pressure. They're all under pressure, but a player like, if you're on the bench, you're a bench player, essentially, you're under pressure because everyone's coming through that avenue, especially the youngsters, just like he did. And the great thing about Curtis Moran is everyone has, including myself, numerous times left him out of their best 17s and whatever else. Well, the coach doesn't see it that way. I felt he was underutilised in that semi-final, but we don't know. Maybe he was carrying an injury, had a little mistake. Then have some fuckwits on Facebook say that he's shit because he's too small. I think you get more post-contact than half the big fellas in the team last year. And his line speed's really good. He meets bigger men and cuts out their time. And he hits hard. He does everything to the best of his ability. And Cameron Serrata said he's going to pick a player like that over someone who's got all the ability and skill in the world, but goes on holiday when the going gets tough. Connor Tracy was away into the high ball, badly timed jumps when he didn't need a leap. I will tell you this, James. It was that time in the afternoon. There was sun and there was also wind. I was there and it was pretty bloody breezy. Broncos had the wind at their back and it was a tough day. Now, they didn't defuse all their bombs either. I would suggest that they had a bit more cohesion around the ball and they also had it a little bit better. They had Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds kicking the footy a lot of that day, especially in that first half. Makes a difference. It really does. So, a trial, Blake Taff had his issues to start the season last year, but it does improve. It does get better. And all things equal, when you don't have that massive gale force breeze, like it was a pretty strong wind behind the Broncos. So we were running uphill in that first half. And the second half, we had the breeze as well, but it was different. Because, as I said, we played 23 players. They played 28. They had 2 forward pack rotations. We had 1. Right? That's the difference. All but one of their players have played first grade at some point. Some had played numerous. And some have been first grade ready for 2 or 3 years, like Dean Mariner and Deloise Hoita. Karapani, they've got high hopes on him. These players would play in a role at most clubs. Hopefully Connor's better for the run. He was safe as a bank last year. Yeah, there's honestly context. Tough conditions to catch a footy. Timing out. It's a trial. Look, to be fair, at Belmore it gets pretty breezy down there as well. So they should get lots of practice at catching a ball wobbling around. And you'd think Matty Burton would make it pretty difficult to catch some footies. So there's no excuses. Well, there's reasons as to why it was difficult with what he was up against. But obviously, if he goes and gets the, what do they call it? I've forgotten the word, but if he gets spooked by catching footies, he will get replaced because that's what happens with fullbacks. They have to be able to catch the footy. Luke Patton. I look at a player like Will Kennedy and I see a lot like Luke Patton. Really dependable, safe fullback. They can break the line when you need them to occasionally and just keep catching those footies. But they have bad days. Greg Bretnell had bad days. Jason Ouchen had bad days. Luke Patton had bad days. Ben Barber had some bad days. Tracy's had a bad day in a trial. Let's hope he doesn't have too many bad days once we hit the season proper. Hi, mate. Thanks for another great cast. You're welcome, Jason. Thanks for joining, brother. Luke Smith is a great example of being tried in the centres. Yeah, well, I said nah, he's not playing centre. He's a second rower, blah, 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 blah. Well, he did a really good run. Then I think Jacob Preston went off script a little bit by running from dummy half and then Prestomania all the way to the try line. For me, if I'm the coach, I'm like, oh, thanks for doing that for the fans and good heads up footy. But I'm probably like, just pass the ball out and run through your sets. It's a trial, but footballer, you can't stop a footballer from seeing an opportunity and going for it. And many people probably will disagree with what I just said, and that's fine. But trials are there to practice. And and if Jacob Preston's there at dummy half, you rest assured not too many players are going to be on their heels. You'd think they're going to be ready for it now when 2 points is up for grabs. So, just my thoughts. Love Jacob Preston. Isaac Tungo, yeah, another one. Where would he be now? Where would he be? Because clubs have paid Isaac Tungo much money if Matt Burton stays at the Panthers and Stephen Crichton stays at the Panthers, with Brian To'o and whoever else was on the wing at the time. Isaac Tungo doesn't even get a run. Is someone going to pay him $500,000 as a centre or winger to go to a club? They paid Burton. We paid Burton way more money than anyone else was offering because we needed that type of player in our club, that talent, and it helped bring other talent. It was X factor. It was talent, but a centre and look, Isaac Tungo as a footballer, they believe he could play 5'8", could do lots of things. Like he's a real talent. But would he have got the offers from other clubs to go if Burton and Crichton, if the Panthers were allowed to pay them, extra money to keep him because of salary cap rules? Always interesting. There's heaps of things that these commentators talk about. Matthew Johns had the big one. Oh, well, NRL buy the Super League, and that'll encourage more Australian players to make those cameos again. Why would it? Which NRL club is going to allow Matt Burton to go and play 6 games of Super League at the end of the season for some big portion of money? And then also play representative football and then supposedly come back for the preseason. Too much footy. They already reckon they play too much footy. Like, it's all pie in the sky shit. And then people go, oh, that's a great idea. It's never going to happen. Maybe for fringe players, like who already go over there, or players getting a retirement, or people needing to reboost their career to come back. But the best players aren't going over there ever. Not even for cameos. Maybe a week or 2 weeks. Because they're like, oh, Andrew Johns did it. The game's different now. Our pathways are produced as well. Look at Alamotti and Avarillo. Yeah. Jakey. He had a real steel in his eye. Real evil look in his eye. He probably saw that Sutton was refereeing. He's like, oh, fuck. G'day, D. Welcome, brother. I think our style of play will suit the way needed to win in the early rounds. Good defence, high completions of defending errors, expecting a strong start to the year. Well, yes, let's hope for the high completions. Look, they reckon about a 77 to 79% completion rate is a sign of a really classy football side that asks a lot of questions, makes a few errors on the back of it. But early in the season, you want 85% completion. And that's what all Penrith aim for, high completions, get through their sets, play up and down the field until they win ascendancy, force an error, and force a team to crack under, failure to resist. And if a team can just stay in the grind with them in those early rounds, get a bit of luck, score a couple of tries, Penrith may struggle to score 3 tries to beat them. That's sort of been what's happened over the last few years. And someone will probably bring out that they won 40-0 somewhere, but they're vulnerable to start the year. So much so, I think Cronulla will win. Unless, they're going to put it all about Nico. Nico will decide whether they win or not. Fuck, that annoys me. Makes me nearly not want to watch the game. Just let him play. But, D, with your point, is that we're trying to be a defensive outfit and our style of play should suit. But if we don't complete, and that's been the problem in the trials, is our completion rates haven't been high enough, we will be in trouble. For sure. So if we do all that stuff and complete high, go through the sets, put the bombs up, and then have a little bit of flavour out there when we need it, through speed and efficiency, for sure. But otherwise, if we don't complete high, we'll be tested. First two rounds last year, I've talked about them over and over again. Blake Taft dropped a bomb to start. We then didn't basically get the ball back for ages. And just, I think it was 71 to 29%. With 10 minutes to go in favour of Parramatta possession. It was ridiculous. Can't win those games, but I will come out of those games going, we had no right to even think we could make a comeback in that game. Burton slots those goals. Those boys believe they can come over the top and win. Didn't eventuate, but Sharks looked the better side for the first half. Ridiculous penalty. I know because it cost me mate about $1,000 on a bet that he did, gamble responsibly, when they disallowed Kiraz try, which was bullshit. We should have beat Cronulla twice that year, and that sort of sucked it out of us. Played against the Titans. They were rusty as fuck. And we just stuck to our guns, and then big crowd at Belmore beat them. I'll tell you this, I think they have the bye round one. They play us at Belmore. I'll be sensing an ambush from them, just like when the Bulldogs beat the Storm when they went back to Belmore. Although it was at Belmore, it was the Storm were not prepared for Sean Lane down the right edge and everything we bought in that first half. I think we led 20-0 at half time. Scoreless draw in the second half. So that is what I'm expecting come round 2 from the Titans at Belmore. And I've digressed again. Khaled Rajab played in the Newtown Jets winning grand final team last year. Yeah, well, look, all I'll say about Khaled is that he was definitely a Bulldogs junior, loved the Bulldogs. But when, it was made known that he should have been in the NRL side, started against the Knights after coming off the bench the previous week. Did all right off the bench. Started against the Knights in the utmost baptism of fire, and we'll probably never see him play first grade ever again. That's all I've got to say about that. But he played well in that grand final side for Newtown last year. And maybe he will make first grade one day. But I don't think he will. But still a good junior. And if he was able to bide his time and keep working on his game and there wasn't so much noise around him. Some of the noise I heard, like how he should be in the side. And, you know, other clubs offering him money and all this sort of stuff. No, well, here you go. 4 missed tackles later, 24-0 after 15 minutes. One of the worst days in the club's history. And there you go. Bit of sad news this week as well. Bob Hagan, first player to captain, coach, and be a CEO of the Bulldogs, passed away. So Michael Hagan's brother, I'm pretty sure it's his brother. Vale to him. Anyway, guys, that's an hour and a half. I've been going pretty hard the whole podcast. I've given you a fair bit of what I think. Probably do a couple of player watches this week. Sorry if there's little ads that pop up on these things. But they you know, help pay for me subscriptions and all that sort of shit. But just skip them after 5 seconds or whatever. Or if you like it, click on it. I don't give a fuck. I become a member, YouTube Premium. I don't get any ads because I hate ads. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for all the beautiful messages, all the interaction. And I can't wait to watch the Bulldogs against the Dragons. Harold Matz, Jersey Flag, Tasha Gale, Lisa Fiola this week. Not Jersey Flag, SG Ball, I should say. Can't wait to watch or hear about those. Oh, there's some games in Vegas if you hadn't heard. And as I said, people, if you're talking to people about CTE, early onset dementia in the game, don't just become a cliche, someone who just adds the cliches and repeats the rhetoric going around. Think about it. Think about it. They can't hide from what the rugby league is. It's a combat sport. So when a player falls into, Jack Gowalski falls in, gets leveled by Burton across the chest in a legal assaultive combative tackle, which was fantastic, and then falls into the shoulder of Josh Curran, who's just standing there to meet them in the defensive line. Josh Curran shouldn't be held accountable for that contact. And neither should any player in the NRL. Especially that when in Harold Matz, when no one's recording the game and there's no bunker, if that exact same situation happens, which it does multiple times every week, nothing's going to be done about it. The person's going to have a concussion. The players are going to be fined. There'll be no suspensions. Because if the sideline, because it's innocuous, the touch judge doesn't really see it. The ref doesn't see it. Nobody sees it. Nothing happens. But the club, apparently, the game is doing its duty of care to protect the player. And he's more important because he's a professional, apparently. No, it's just bullshit. And it's got to stop. And I think the more people have this discussion, the better place we'll end up. Put it back on these grubby little fucking lawyers who want to sit there and make as much money as they can from this ongoing battle that'll go on for years. And advertisers will be sold views and clicks to put their ads on the media that talk about it like it's some thing you believe in or don't believe in, when it's facts. Someone's got to defend the fucking game. Anyway, guys, have a good one, everyone. Hour and a half. Big day of work tomorrow. But I am if the Bulldogs are going to Vegas next year, part of me is like, do I need to work a bit harder, save a bit more money, make that happen? I don't know. Anyway, talk soon, guys. Great hearing from you, Timmy. Thanks, Marky. Oh, Michael, you just got home. I'll have fun, brother. I'll have fun working, as will everyone else. Whether you're working, studying, whatever you're doing, if you're chilling, I don't care. Be good to each other and be good to your Bulldogs. Take care, everyone. Go the Dogs.